Welcome back to the second season of Who's That Leader in the Mirror with Sharon Blanchard, your host. That's me. This time around, we're going to look at leadership through the lens of Christian faith, through conversations with Mother Nancy, or Little Mama, as we call her. Across the 6-part series, we explore how Christian principles align with core corporate leadership values and what it means to lead by the example of Jesus himself. Join us as we uncover powerful, practical insights for today's leaders, grounded in timeless truth. I hope you'll join us. Hello, Nancy. Welcome.
Hi, Sharon. It's so great to be with you.
Well, it's just kind of funny because, I'm doing these wee little podcasts for fun. I don't know if anyone listens. Well, maybe a few people, like you said, you listen.
I listen to all of them.
I'm so humbled by that. But it's kind of cool. You're my first in-person interview, which I'm like looking right across the table at you. And everyone else, God bless my sweet friends, I've Zoom called from our little place here in Twizel in New Zealand. And we're just so blessed to have you here with us. So we're going to try to get through like a quick few podcasts and talk about leadership, because you've just had this incredible journey, being a mom and a young mom and going back to school and having this incredible call to the priesthood. And you're our little mama. And honestly, we only met 2 years ago.
Right.
And, it's funny because this whole week I just feel like, I've always, when you're going to do something big, anyway, I don't know if it's going to be big, but I think you and I are going to be big because we're awesome.
We are. Well, and it's funny because, this is something, what we're doing today is one of the things I hoped would come out of this trip.
Yeah.
Is that somehow you and I could connect in our learning of leadership and our experience of leadership and our conversations of leadership. And as two women who have worked very hard to get where we are and to do what we do with integrity and compassion, I think that's just so important to have those conversations.
Yeah. And I remember, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, I wanted the big hammer over my head, right? Moment. I was telling you the other night over making supper, and I'm like, I never had that. I mean, I had the axe fall on my head in the basement, and Father John's like, yeah, that's what you were looking for. But my whole life, I'm still waiting. I'm like, Lord, right? Put me in, coach. But you've had that. So tell us a little bit about young Nancy. So before we jump into the podcast talking about leadership and Christianity and spirituality, and the infusion of all of those wonderful things, let's talk a little bit about who you were before. So who was young Nancy with the bouncing red ball? Who was that?
Well, so I grew up in a small town in Texas, right? My dad was going to school, getting his higher education with a wife and 3 children. And so learning was very important in our family, and always being active learners about everything. And so, that was just so important. We went to church all the time, but it was just different. Women were not seen as capable leaders in that denomination. And so as a young adult, when there was no avenue, I really felt as a teenager that God was calling me to something bigger, but there was no avenue for it. Nobody to mentor and guide me through that. So I just started my career as a technical writer and loved it. And I was a young mom raising my son through that and going to school, and my parents supported me going back to school and finishing that, and it was great. And so I was never, right, I don't know how to say it except I saw, and this, I don't want this to sound terrible, but I saw lots of bad leadership examples.
I think we all have.
And to learn from that,
Sadly.
right? To say that this can teach me something. This is not how I want to be a leader. And just had a great career. Loved being a technical writer. It was I really enjoyed that, and leading the teams that I was on through several different transitions to other companies, and then. Gosh, as a middle-aged woman with a son getting ready to go to college, my priest then started talking about my leadership within the parish and how what that role was and how I was involved in everything. And it wasn't so much a smack over the head moment as a long, slow, discerning conversation with that priest where I remembered the call that, God has called me into leadership. And now there's a path, now there's an avenue in this new church I was in. And just that discernment with a group of people, and that's how we say it in the Episcopal Church, that both God and the church call us. And so to be called into leadership in my mid-40s into that, and going back to school and getting my master's degree in Master of Divinity, and coming out of that into leading parishes, and now going back to school to do my Doctor of Ministry, right? It's just that learning, continuous lifelong learning and the continuous formation of who we are. Yeah.
Pretty cool, hey?
It is so cool. So cool to be a part of all of it.
Right?
Yeah.
It's funny because as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, gosh, I so have it all wrong. Like, in your heart, you've got it right, but I've got it wrong. Like, I want the hammer over my head. I want the burning bush. I want Old Testament stuff.
I've had my... I remember just discerning where to go to seminary. The bishop gave me a choice, and I was plotting them out on a spreadsheet as every logical person would do, right?
Yeah.
And the cost of the two were almost identical. And I remember just sitting in a hotel room and yelling out loud, God, where is my burning bush?
Yeah.
Make this decision for me.
But that's not the way it happens.
But that's not the way it happens. It was the moment of where was my heart leading me, and it was to go where I went. So
It's funny because back in the day when I was really coming into my faith, I used to call it my Reeboks mode. Father John would be like, Sharon, you got to zoom around and come back this way. Like, not get ahead of Jesus, not get ahead of the Lord.
Follow.
Right? And I'd be like, I call it my Reeboks because I'd be like, woo, running so fast ahead. And he'd be like, turn around, come on back this way.
Yeah.
And that's the gentleness that's what we need to get used to. It's that gentle voice. It's that
still
patience,
voice,
right?
Yeah.
God doesn't give us patience. He gives us opportunities to grow in patience.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Amazing. So why follow Jesus? I mean, burning bush. Did you get the burning bush?
I didn't have a burning bush. I had a wadded up spreadsheet.
Yeah.
That didn't give me the answer I wanted, but my heart did. That's right. And I think that's right, to go back to Jesus always called people with the words, follow me. And right, that he shows us in flesh and blood, right? My parish would say, if they do, right, the sermon bingo, those same phrases we use all the time.
Yeah.
One of mine is Jesus shows us in flesh and blood what it is to be who God created us to be. It is a continuous thing. And so that, right, I just know that in the depth of my soul that that's who we are all created to be. And Jesus shows us how to live that every moment of every day, and gives us the grace that when we stumble and trip and make mistakes, we come back and say, right, let me follow you. And it's that continuous calling back into following, and setting aside our own humanness, that human egos that make us want to be the leader of Jesus, when in following is how we learn to be kind, compassionate humans with integrity.
Yeah. Beautiful. It's as women, right? Even though we are, here and it's 2025, 13 years ago, when you were being called, or when you started your journey, couldn't have been easy being a woman.
No, and it's not easy, right? Even in, right, a church that ordains women and promotes women. And there's so many unknown biases that we have, and that's part, I think, of our continual journey, is to find those and have those revealed to us and work on them. But I mean, even in a more progressive denomination, right, women are still not always seen as equals with men.
Yeah.
And so there's always challenges.
Yeah. And identity, just before we started, we were talking a little bit about what I call my Peter Parker syndrome, where it's like, who am I, right?
Yeah.
How do I be Sharon in all things? And right? And it's that struggle to be that best version of myself in all things. And so as a priest, you're Nancy in the kitchen and, when we're going for our walks. And then, we've been very blessed to be part of your service when we were back in Texas a few times. And then you're like, oh, there she is. Oh my gosh, I better start watching out what I'm doing. But that's your call, is to live that. So tell me just a little bit about that.
So that's, right. We all have, I think, a vocation. Our call towards God, our call to be in relationship with God. Every human has that, whether we acknowledge it or not. And that we each then, with the unique skills and gifts and talents that God has given us, have a part in bringing about the kingdom on earth as in heaven. And me as a priest is part of that, right? That's my particular. We all have the general vocation, and then my particular one in the later half of my life is into the priesthood, and that is part of who I am. I am still, right, a mom of grown children and a gamby, as my granddaughter calls me.
Great-gamby.
And a great-gamby, when I add y'all on. And I was a wife to Brian's dad, and all those things are who God made me to be, and different ways of expressing who I am, right? And that continuous hard work of going inside and saying, okay, who is the beloved child of God that God made, and how is that lived out through all of my life and every role of my life? So it's complicated.
It is complicated, and just most recently you lost your husband, my father-in-law, and again the impact of that on Nancy the moving forward, right? Part of being here is for us to be together and have that time together and to heal and through that it's just maybe talk me through how that's been for you.
When we first got Jim's diagnosis, and I was having a conversation with my bishop, and he was telling me, you take whatever time you need, right? And I said, I want to do this well. I want this to be my experience in this. I'm going to be open with my parish. I'm going to let them know everything, because I think it's my chance to model how we live this, right? How we live through the hard struggles of life, while following Jesus and living in the wisdom that even in the struggles, Jesus is right there struggling with us, right? Hurting with us. And so I've been very honest and open with my congregation. I write articles and emails for them about what this experience has been. And when Jim passed and the time I took off, I still stayed in communication with them, and they have been so grateful and have shared how much they've learned and been able to grow who they are by me being so open and honest with my experience, right? It's not, God never promised us that life would be a bed of roses. Jesus didn't live through a bed of roses, right? He was very open and honest with his disciples about the struggles. And I think that's part of how he teaches us to lead. Right? Is that we have to be authentic. We have to be who we are. Human beings that God created with emotions and with responses and reactions to the things happening around us. And we have to learn to navigate that well. And I'm right.
And that really takes us into where we're going to go with this season, short season. for the podcast and talking about leadership, right? And how we take that into leadership. And so not easy, but, I talk about so much in my own research and writing about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and how you navigate the good, the bad, and the ugly. And with joyful hearts, we look forward to listening and sharing in your story as you share with us some gems about leadership and the good, the bad, and the ugly. And Jesus-led leadership. So thank you for being here. And please join us for the next podcast. And we're going to have a few more with Mother Nancy, Little Mama. And so stay tuned.